this was like a rare miss for us. I was devastated. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, you're fine.
Zana was devastated too. She's like, I can't believe I did that. I'm like, it happens. It's like,
Yeah.
it's happened twice in 6 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And by the way, I guess this shirt is not the best shirt to wear going forward. I can see, no, it's literally just straight lines down. There isn't anything weird about it, but the camera does not like it. Okay, give me just 1 sec. Let's make sure we're all set up. All right, cool. Here we go. And by the way, I'm going to do the proper intro later. We'll just jump right in. I'll introduce you, and then we'll start talking about it. All right. Today on the show, our guest is Ryan Rodenbeck from Spyglass Realty and also the host of Realty Hack podcast. So let me tell you more about Ryan. Now, Ryan grew up in Louisiana and moved to Austin in 2001. He started Spyglass Realty in 2008, which would, gosh, that had to have been a tough year to start a realty, but he did.
Was.
And and it was it really created it as a place to be as a solo agent with maybe a couple other agents. You know, he was building this company. In 2015, he started to put plans in place to take his team into a real brokerage, and he built systems and processes in place to grow the team. Now, in 2019, he sold his last home. By 2021, he had grown the brokerage from just a couple of agents to 42 agents. And in 2024, now he's up to almost 150 agents, which is insane. I'm a recruiter. I know how difficult that is to do. And he's doing it. And I'm glad he's not in my market because he'd be stealing our agents away. But he doesn't hire new agents. He doesn't hire part-time agents. And I'll tell you why. Because his leadership team's main focus is hiring agents that have the potential to double or triple their production. Now, Ryan has served in an advisory role for many real estate platforms as well as other tech companies. He served on the customer advisory board for Workplace by Facebook and Genie.ai. Now, he keeps up with current technology trends and is always looking for ways to contribute to automation and technology services. And I would like everybody to follow Ryan's podcast or visit Ryan's podcast, subscribe to it, realtyhack.com or whatever podcast app you're just search for Realty Hack, hit that subscribe button, but realtyhack.com, you can listen to all of his episodes on that website. And also, if you are a realtor in the Austin area and you would like a firm that is interested in doubling and tripling your production, Spyglass Realty is the place to check out. Spyglassrealty.com is where you go to learn about all things Spyglass and see if you'd be a good option and fit for their team and if they'd be a good fit for you. And so spyglassrealty.com, Realty Hack. We will have links to all of this in the show notes. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was an introduction, man. I think I need you to go out with me here in Austin and then do that same speech.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd be happy to. I mean, there's worse cities to come down and hang out in. But thank you so much for being on the show. Just a quick little funny thing. Well, not funny to Ryan, but funny to us. Poor Ryan, we were supposed to do the thing last week, and I got a message about, I didn't know, it wasn't on my calendar. And so all of a sudden Zana goes, person's been waiting for 20 minutes. Are you not showing up? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so Ryan has been gracious enough. This really speaks to his character and just what a nice guy he is. Normally Zana was like, I don't think he's going to want to reschedule because we just let him hanging for 20 minutes. And he goes, hey, it happens. No problem. So we're grateful to have him today. So really was very, very grateful to Ryan for being so kind about that. And also, again, if you are a broker or a realtor in the Austin area, Ryan's a real good guy. So you should reach out to him if you're not getting what you need from your firm. But Ryan, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got started in real estate. I know you moved to Austin 2001, but what brought you into real estate?
I owned a company that was filing claims for class action lawsuits, particularly on a siding manufacturer that had a warranty. And, anyway, we would knock on doors or send out mailers, let people know that there is a class action lawsuit. In most cases, they were unaware of that. Then we moved from there to trying to get more, bulk business. So we hit up property managers. I was already investing in real estate at the time. And when the class action limitations ended in 2005, we were looking for something to get into, and real estate was, because we were already working with property management companies, because I was an investor, started in doing investment property.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you started working with investors, and then how did you just, because working with investors is a whole different animal. Of course, there's lots of agents that do it, lots of agents that don't know how to do it
Yeah.
or wish they could learn how to do it. And but you didn't stop there. You basically created a team, and then you decided, this brokerage thing sounds pretty good. And I would love to learn a little bit about how you transitioned from working with investors individually to eventually building this team, and then saying, hey, I want to just run the brokerage.
Yeah. So, our original name of our company was Spyglass Realty and Investments. And the idea was to have a focus on investment properties.
Sure.
I didn't want to be the hokey realtor, with air quotes there. And what I realized is investors are good to have, but it can be tough when the market's down. And so, we did focus on investment property for a long time. We still do investment property, but I wanted to become a top producing real estate agent. So about 2011 ish, I went full force into some coachings. Joined a coaching mastermind that was very intense. I said, where can I get all of the habits that I want from a top producing agents, and implement that into my own style of selling? Became a top producing listing agent. I was a platinum top 50 9 years in a row, and the
Wow.
ABJ top 50, I think 3 times. But yeah, and so it was really having that mentality of, I don't want to be the lazy realtor that just puts a sign in the yard, but let's look at every variable you can to help sell the home. Got completely utterly into listings, and then employed these other services, like I think I was a Tiger Leads customer back in the day, and brought in a $2.7 million list, a buyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that was my record completely. And that was an internet lead.
Can you believe it? That's amazing.
Yeah. And now that number doesn't seem so high, but back in 2014 it was, right? And so, I said to myself, I've got a handful of agents. I'm bringing in internet leads. What if I could do to building a team what I did to manifesting being a top producing listing agent? And so that's where I again, did the same thing that I did before. I've been going to conferences for 15 years, started meeting with the friends, that I'd met at conferences. You can always get more information off people that aren't in your market. And, just aligning with tech companies as well. Like I'm good friends with the owners of Ylopo and Follow Up Boss, and, just really diving into these communities.
Yeah, I love that, and you seem very coachable. I guess would be maybe. Would you say that's a secret of your success, is being able to say, oh, in your mastermind group, for example, it was a lot like, how do you guys do it? Oh, you do it that way. I'll try that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, arrogance can be a roadblock to success, especially when you're trying to learn new things.
Yeah, tell us before we get deeper into Spyglass. I want to talk about your podcast, because
Yep.
obviously our listeners are podcast listeners, and we want to give them other podcast ideas. So tell us about Realty Hack.
Yeah, so I started that about 4 years ago, and I've because I've been networking and traveling to different real estate conferences over 15 years. I knew I had a list of people that I wanted to interview that are associates or friends of mine, and so I started Realty Hack Podcast 4 years ago. I went through all the CEOs of like the prop tech companies, Ylopo, Follow Boss, REW. What's interesting though is the shift when I started going. Like, my audience is mostly local. It's getting a little bit national right now, but still overwhelmingly local. And I was really interested in the prop tech and the journey, that kind of how I built this of real estate technology. And what I found very interesting is that when I would interview someone local, a local top producing agent, and it would just, I'd get 3-4 times the amount of engagement. Then, what I found is that the agent's interest is not always aligned with mine. And
Sure.
so, and I'll be very honest with you, is that it's a recruitment tool,
Of course.
yeah, just being able to, elevate your brand and putting all your stuff on Instagram with, with terms of, in terms of making sure that when we have a podcast, we email it out. And then it's been probably one of the biggest uh, facilitators of recruitment that I've ever done in my life.
That's amazing. I need to do a better job of that myself, because of course this could be a bigger recruiting tool for me as well. And when I first started the show, I wanted it to be sort of I wanted it to be agnostic, right? Or brokerage agnostic, because I was asking these top producers, who most of them weren't from our firm, to sort of share their secrets. And I thought, well, they're probably not going to want me sharing their secrets and then promoting my business or my broker or our brokerage. So and then I never kind of revisited it. And I think I'm to the point now where I think everyone's okay with me saying, oh, by the way, this is what I do. And so
Yeah.
I have to make that transition myself. But I will tell you, from doing it for, I think this is our 6th or 7th year, that just by sheer force of being a podcast directed to other broker or other agents, that, word has spread pretty rapidly in our local market as well. So our biggest concentration of listeners are also from our local market.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, how it's evolved over the years. In January of 23, we started our first Realty Hack Summit, which we had 250 people, agents, our agents, outside agents. In 24, we had our second one. We had over 400 people. It was a total hit. We've had, we have a headliner. We've had Jimmy Mackin and Brittany Hodak from Superfans. They were two of our keynotes last year. We had Anthony Macchia and Howard Tager. So it's really, and then the next evolution, which is about to happen now, is we're about to release Realty Hack Academy, which is a Kajabi subscription based.
Sure.
It's not even out yet, but we're close. We're working on it for a year and a half. Particularly because the reason this came about is because we are the biggest Zillow Flex team in Austin, the highest converting one, and so we were already doing all these lessons in Kajabi for our team, and so that's what, when you go,
might as well offer it to everyone. Yeah,
absolutely. And so
by the way, for everyone listening who doesn't he said flex, and you may not know what that is. Not every market has this. So Zillow has an option, what they call their flex program. They have Premier Agent and Flex. Premier Agent is you pay up front for the leads, and whatever happens, happens. Flex is you pay on the back end, and they are very selective about who they send those flex leads to. Here in our local market, there's only 4 teams out of 46,000 realtors that they send those leads to. So the reason I'm saying that is, if you are a realtor in the Austin area, I guarantee there's only a few people that are getting these flex leads, and Ryan and his team have them. So this is another reason to reach out to see if they may be a good fit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we're working with Zillow right now. It's one of those things that, I used to be a Zillow hater. Okay. And if you can't beat them, join them. But what I've learned is over the years is, you cannot fight change. You need to embrace it.
You can try, but it's not going to work.
Try. That's right. And with any potential crisis or commission compression or whatever it is, you really need to figure out your angle. And we've come to have an excellent partnership with Zillow.
Yeah. Yeah. Zillow's been a good partner to our show as well. And I know not everybody feels positively about them. However, I will tell you, everyone I've ever met in the Zillow organization has really been a nice, good human being. So I've not seen any of the monsters trying to ruin our industry, but I know people have their own opinions, and that's okay. But what's nice to know is that they do have different types of lead options, where if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't afford to pay $10,000 a month, well, there you may be able to join a team that has access to these flex leads. It's very hard to get flex leads. And I'm like, we like none of our agents would qualify for those here. And we have 800 agents here at our firm.
Wow.
So I am very, very impressed that you are one of the Zillow's flex partners. And
Thank you.
look, who doesn't need more leads? Everybody.
Yeah.
So love it. So, tell us now, I am mostly impressed, Ryan, with your recruiting strategy because, everybody wants full-time agents. Everybody wants, high producing listing agents, of course. But not everyone is able to say, I want agents that want to double and triple their production because I know how to do that. Of course, brokerages might say that, but you actually walk that talk. So can I just ask you, what is and again, I know it's a lot of different things when somebody comes to you and says, I want to double and triple my production that they need to do to end up with that result. But where do you usually start with somebody when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm a full-time agent. I'm doing, let's say, 15 deals a year, pretty modest production. I'd like to get to 30 deals a year. Where do you sort of start with that person?
Well, we look at what their lead sources are. And, there's two types of agents that we recruit. One are agents been in business 1 to 3 years and have done 1 to 3 million. Like
Sure.
we're so good with that. Okay. Because we plug them into our lead sources and we plug them into our automation, like our sending out our monthly newsletter, putting people in the seller suites and home bots and things like that. Right. We also do a quarterly gift giving thing where agent can just come on our site and plug in how many bundt cakes they want to be delivered, right? And so that's probably the simplest way. Like getting an agent is between 1 to 3 million to 6 million or more. That's easy for us because
Sure.
we have the lead sources. Now, the agents that are more veteran agents that are doing 12 to 15 deals a year, that is tougher because what I always tell agents is you don't want to take my leads when you have a pipeline that's full. It doesn't
Right.
make financial sense. Okay.
Right.
So how we evaluate the agent's business, we figure out where their lead sources are, what's that one lever they're pulling, and how can we help facilitate that so they can do more work in less time. So is that through email campaigns? If it's let's say it's farming, right? We automate the farming process for them.
Sure.
And just whatever lever they're going to pull is what we double down on, and we've done it so many times that we know all the levers. I think, but the experience working with other agents that way.
But what you're saying right now is so logical and rational and seemingly, sort of like common sense. Like we're gonna approach when I meet an agent who's interested in joining from like a consultant's perspective. Where's your pain points? Where are you struggling? You can't do everything perfectly. Where are you falling a bit behind? And then Ryan and his team are like, okay, well, if we can do that for you, we will. And I love that approach. And I'm not sure, and I hate to say this because it sort of makes us sound like the industry is not doing a lot of this, but I don't know that the industry is doing a lot of this. Like as I'm thinking about it, I mean, I ask people when they join us, hey, where are your pain points? And then, try to figure out if we can solve them. But I don't know that every brokerage does. I know brokerages will think, well, if one of your pain points is one of the things we just have, then great. But I like the idea of you guys really saying, we'll take that off your plate for you. That's
Yeah.
not what most brokerages do. They might say we have resources to do it, or, maybe there's an admin that can help with X, Y, or Z. But I love the fact that you guys are tailor making basically a custom plan for somebody to take something that they aren't good at right off their plate.
Yeah, and what we've done is really looked at our mission statement and core values. Our mission statement is we make good agents into great agents. Okay. Our core values, which we live and die by these, are do the right thing, be smart, be all in, and take action. So if an agent embodies those 4 core values, there really should be no reason that they can't succeed here. If they're not being smart, or they're not taking action, or they're not all in, then any one of those things can cause failure, especially the taking action part.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like that idea. So if again, speaking to Spyglass, which is Ryan's brokerage, if you're in the Austin area and your managing broker or whoever the manager is for you is not saying, hey, where are you struggling? Not just, hey, do you need, obviously everybody wants more leads. That's a pretty simple one. But if the manager isn't coming over saying, hey, where are you struggling right now?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can take that off your plate, which most managing brokers are not going to do that. Then you should reach out to Ryan and see if you know you could synergy. If you can live those four values that he just
That's
described, he wants you
yeah.
because if you can do those four things, he can do the rest.
Yep.
So that's pretty impressive. Ryan, I know you're a big tech guy, and I'd love to sort of get your thoughts on where you think the tech space is headed for realtors. I know there's a lot of concern about, well, there always has been concern about tech sort of replacing agents. We don't have to have that conversation because so far it hasn't happened, but it's always a bit of a threat. But I'm curious in where you see technology developing to assist agents. Do you have any thoughts about, you know, where you're seeing some of your friends in the tech space working on new tools?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we are seeing more efficiency from a measurement standpoint. Like we're using a company called Maverick, which is an offshoot of Ylopo, where we can see how many agents are, making their first time appointments, keeping their appointments, and if they're not keeping appointments, why are they not? Or if they're writing offers and they didn't go through, why are they not writing more offers? Like that type of thing. So that's
Sure.
one of the things, right? The other thing that we're talking about with them in particular, especially with our Realty Hack Academy, is I'm talking with them about having at the end of a segment where an agent has gone through our videos and our questionnaires and they know how we want them to speak. Okay. Then they're doing live calls with an AI bot, and the AI bot is like the consumer bringing
Oh,
objections. Yeah, that's really slick.
wow.
Yeah,
I love that. So you're basically practicing role playing
absolutely. Yeah.
with AI.
With AI. Yeah. The other thing that I think we're going to see is AI in terms of like in your CRM, right? Predictive analysts,
Yep.
looking at, um, automations between when a property, a contract comes in, sending out, the AI being able to look at the different scenarios and then say, should you want to send this email or this email, right? I mean, this is progressing really, really fast. And I think that, like you said, there's a robot's never going to show a house, right? But it can make us more productive. And that's what we're trying to lean into and see who can give us the best efficiency, what tech teams are out there, and how can we employ that with our brokerage.
I love that. I'll tell you where I see a huge opportunity in the CRM space. And I know that we partner with Real Geeks here at our firm. Follow Up Boss, we've worked with in the past too. They were a big supporter of our show. And I know Real Geeks is working on this, and I'm sure they're all working on it, all the CRM providers. But this idea of prompt. So right now, when we think about AI, it's mostly a question and answer sort of scenario. We ask a question, we get an answer, very similar to like what the Greeks used to say, the Oracle at Delphi, like the all-knowing thing. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer, and that's great. I think the next iteration, or certainly a different use case, will be when the AI goes and just on its own starts looking at the data in the CRM, for example, all the contacts, and then starting to figure out reasons to reach out to each one of those contacts at different times. The most obvious example would be like obviously birthdays. Well, that already that's not really an AI thing. That's just a pretty simple algorithmic thing
Sure.
that most CRMs have. But what would be really cool is if, for example, it started looking deeper and it started, maybe tying together somebody's social media profiles, which some of them do that now, and starting to reason, hey, we know this, we just noticed this person went to Cabo on a vacation. Maybe a good time to reach out and say, how was the trip to Cabo?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe more interpersonal things, but instead of the agent having to look to figure these things out, that stuff's going to be coming to us and saying, hey, make these 10 calls today.
That's genius. Yeah, I haven't thought about it like that. But like, all right, someone had a baby, someone's kid graduated from high school. These are all, life events that can trigger a sale, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that that's kind of where it's headed, where there's going to be more about the system telling you what to do versus you going through and really trying to figure out who to contact. So I'm excited to see that piece of it. Now let's talk about the NAR settlement, not the settlement itself, but just sort of the changes that you're seeing. The big concern, of course, is right now with buyer representation. Now, agents are going to have to explain how commissions worked, which I argue they should have done from the beginning, but whatever,
Sure.
not everyone did. And I understand why, right? I get that it wasn't a conversation that was, I think it's absolutely essential, but a lot of agents didn't, because they could say, well, it's really just coming out of the seller side, which isn't really the case, but whatever, it's sort of true, but not really. And
Sure.
here we are in this mess. So, how are you training your agents to now have those buyer agency conversations to say, this is what I charge, here's how it normally works, and here's how it might work differently if, for example, we see a 0% co-op? Well, I mean, you wouldn't explain it that way to the client, but if an agent sees a 0% co-op, they're going to be very concerned, and we are starting to see those. I don't know if in your market if you've seen any of those yet, but obviously that speaks to this buyer agency agreement situation. So how are you training agents to deal with things like that?
So we're training them exactly as we have before. Okay. We're not seeing very much pushback on it.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, pre-settlement and post-settlement, the consumer is going to, the average consumer buying a home is going to know around the same amount, right?
Right.
I mean, I mean, as before and after. Okay. The difference is now there's a possibility that it may have to come out of their pocket. Well, I think when we talk to agents, when we talk to agents to tell them to work with buyers, just explain, well, I charge
X,
whatever X
X,
amount
yeah.
commission. Okay. And a lot of times, most sellers will pay for a commission allotment. If it's not X amount, then it will come out of your pocket, or we can roll it into closing cost. Okay. But I think as an industry, we have been very, very lax on how to explain a buyer contract.
100%.
And I don't know any other industry that's been so scared of explaining a contract.
I would
And
say the only one that comes to mind is certain insurance products where like fees and commissions are kind of hidden. Other than that, it is not that common.
well, right. And the insurance, those that's complicated. What
Right.
we're doing is really not that complicated. Now,
True.
especially Fannie Mae says that that's not going to be, commission's not going to be part of the allowable closing costs, which I called that a year ago. I knew that was going to happen. So, I think when you talk to consumers and you're explaining this, if they have the question, well, what happens if, they're not paying any commission? Well, then, you'll have to pay, and look, we have the ability to go down. Okay. We can't go up. I'm saying go down to reduce our commission. So I think any good agent is going to look at every scenario
Yeah.
and say, what's best for my client, but what's best for my client, and how can I still get paid? The reality is that I believe commissions are going to go down 10, maybe 20%. Okay. It's okay, because in this town, I believe we're going to see 10% value increase. So whatever
Sure.
we lose, we're going to make it up in a couple years. We just have to be diligent about how we explain our services, add value to the clients, and give them different options. I mean, the reality is that if a seller, and I don't believe this is going to be uniform. I think that there's going to be more one-offs of people not selling or not paying a commission.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the buyer needs to know that if an entire neighborhood has paid 2.5% commission, I'm just using that number out there, right? It's on all these homes, or let's say there's 10 houses for sale in a neighborhood and they're all paying 2.5%, and one does not paying 2.5%. That one house just costs 2.5% more. And
yeah,
so,
exactly. 100%. Absolutely. Of course.
yeah, and that's why listing agents rather, need to be very, they need to be able to handle these conversations as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I think it'll be more one-off situations than the norm. I guess no one has the crystal ball, but we're hopeful, of course, that that's how it plays out. And I was curious to, it's funny. I was going to share a quick story. So just to sort of piggyback off of, Ryan's statement that he hasn't gotten the agents haven't received pushback or as much pushback as they may be anticipated from those buyer clients. I met with a Compass agent recently. We just were having breakfast, and I was asking him the same question, and he said, "Oh, he goes, it's kind of funny. For the last 8 years, he's been practicing 8 years. I've only done it this way." He said that's just how I was trained. He did start at Compass or somewhere else, but he said that's I've always told people I charge 2.5%. That was his rate, and most of the time it's going to be covered by the seller, but sometimes it won't. And if so, whatever the difference is, I'm going to need you to make that up. And there's some creative ways to do it. You might have to write me a check. We might be able to resident. He gives the same sort of spiel that Ryan just gave. And I asked him, I said, how often does it happen where they have to come out of pocket? He goes, it happens. And I said, really? For the last 8 years, how often? He's like, he does like 20 deals a year or so. He goes, about four out of 20 deals. I said,
Wow.
really? No kidding. Because he says, I define my commission up front. Of course, the property, whatever the co-op commission is, I can't control that. And I said, have you ever had a problem getting paid from when it's that scenario? He said, never once. He goes, nobody cares. Everybody gets it. I explain it correctly. And I was really, really encouraged when I heard that. I said,
Yeah.
oh, good. And he goes, I don't know why everyone doesn't do it this way. I said, well, everyone's going to start doing it this way, but
Well, no, not everyone is. I think you're going to see people drop out.
well, that's true too. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot harder now to have that conversation. And
Yeah.
if the onesie twosie agents, the agents Ryan doesn't bring on board, are
Right.
those are the agents that are going to probably suffer the most because they get the least amount of training because they don't have enough time. They probably have another job, and they may exit the business as well. So we're starting to see that. We have a holding company here that we're actually the largest holding company in the state, just for agents that aren't practicing. At the beginning of to the end of last year, we had, I think, 700 agents in there. Today we have over 1,000.
Wow.
And that's crazy. And it's just people exiting the business. So
Yeah.
the good news for those of you that are fully in, is this is great news for you, because less competition, more market share to pick up.
Yep. More serious buyers.
Yep.
I mean, less tire kickers, people with intent. And I think this is a really way for, to differentiate yourself. And how many times have an agent gone to a property to see a property, and then they said, I talked to an agent the other day. She said she met a Zillow lead, and the Zillow lead, she got the whole team together, mortgage, inspector, everything. Okay. And on day 2, the guy was like, well, my friends are telling me that, or my family is telling me that you should be giving 1.5%, kickback or rebate or whatever. And, those conversations are gonna be had before you even walk into the house moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's less time wasted. So there are a lot of good things, I think, that are going to come out of this settlement. It's not all bad.
No, I don't. I think it. Yeah, I don't think it's all bad either. I think it's just an adjustment period of teaching agents how to have those conversations in a way that makes sense. And I love this idea of role playing, of course, and having an AI role playing helper would really be great, because you could just program the AI to respond, and just keep pushing that person until they have the skill developed where they can effectively communicate how it all works. And the good news too for buyers is that they were always paying this fee in some way. They just didn't see that they were paying it. So really, yes, are they going to have to come out of pocket sometimes? Maybe, yes, and that's not fun. Nobody wants to write a check. But if you explain it at the beginning before you go do anything, have you bought a home before? Well, you didn't write a check, but let me explain how it was probably baked into the price. So you were paying it some way. Yeah.
You're paying commissions on cars, you're paying finance fees. Like, I think that the fact that people are really scared about this is a gross overestimation of what this is going to do. So I think, in 1 year from now, no one's going to be talking about this.
I agree. We'll all have kind of figured it out. And who knows, maybe some of the lending partners will be able to finance a commission as a separate loan, or, who knows? We don't know. There may be some creative solutions down the pike that would be pretty cool, that, I'm sure all of the major lenders are trying to figure out right now, so they could be first to market. Someone will figure out a way to do it that's compliant. I hope if it's possible, someone will figure out how to do it, and then everybody will do it.
Sure.
So all hope is really not lost, even if you're terrified that, hey, my first time home buyers can't afford to cut a $10,000 check. Yeah, I get it,
Yeah.
but you just hang tight. Their solutions are on the way, and at the same time, you can tell them, hey, everybody pays commission at some point, or most transactions have commissions. It just was hidden before, or not as easily seen, and you can just kind of work from there. I would love to talk just a little bit about interest rates, not where we think they're going, but dealing with the reality of interest rates. You said this at the beginning, sort of, we can, disliking Zillow doesn't make Zillow go away, right? Like
Right.
it just doesn't. So this idea of interest rates, we can hate where rates are, and yet they are. So,
Yeah.
how do you coach around, hey, somebody says, and I don't, the easy answer is, well, you date the rate, you marry the home, which, by the way, is a great thing to say. I'm not in any way suggesting that isn't great. It's great. But I'm curious how you are coaching your agents to deal with people that go, I just want to wait for some of those Fed rate cuts.
Yeah, I think that the way you look at that is like twofold or multifold, actually. I mean, my first mortgage on my home was exactly 7.5%. Okay. If you look at the recorded history of mortgage rates, I think it's like 40 years of, digitally, whatever. And the chart that I saw, there's one 10-year period where rates were below 6%.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to hold, like, wants to shop the rate, and they're waiting for interest rates to go down in a market like Austin, where, we had 37% appreciation over 1 year, 13% drop the next year. Well, I would say we're going to go up, I mean, conservatively, 5% over the next year. It doesn't make it, you're not doing math right if
Yeah.
you're not looking at those scenarios.
Yeah, I was at a conference not that long ago here in Chicago. We're lucky, the National Association. Well, it depends what you think of the National Association of Realtors, but they are technically located physically here in Chicago, so we get a little bit extra maybe attention from them just because we're in the same city. And we had one of their top attorneys speaking, and they were saying, yeah, nobody likes where rates are. This is like 6 months ago, where rates were even a bit higher, but they said what you need to remember is anybody who bought from you in the last 3 years is thrilled with you, because the odds are, no matter where they bought, they probably have gone up at least a little bit in their value. So yes, the rates are tough today, but anyone who bought from you in the last 3 years should be pretty happy.
Yeah.
And two, like when you got your first place and it was 7% or whatever that rate was, because it was your first home, did you even think about that as a bad rate? I know I had like a 6% something or other when
Yeah.
2000. I was like, okay, I guess, like I didn't know enough to even know that was a thing. Like I just,
Didn't bat
okay,
an eye. We're coming from the illusion
right.
of interest rates over this, whatever it was, 2 or 3 year period where they were in the high twos and
Yeah.
low threes, right? And so that it takes time for the mentality of the public to kind of sober up from that, and it's happening though. And so when I look at a good interest rate, I don't really see a place where we're going to be in the fives anymore. I mean, maybe a little bit, but like it's not going to get that much better, and it should never get below 5, in my opinion.
No, and it's kind of hamstrings. Like I have a 2.9 whatever, 2.95 or whatever it is. I can't move. Like
Yeah.
I am literally, and not that I want to, but I can't, even if, I mean, I'd have to if I had to, but boy, I love the rate, but I hate the fact that my next home is not going to be anywhere near that rate. I am now
Yeah.
conditioned to think of this rate as, a normal thing, and it isn't.
Yep.
And it's sort of, it is a bit of a hurdle that agents have to sort of get over in explaining. But you're right, it's all about the math. So if you can explain, yes, you date the rate, you marry the home. Yes, we know that. And let's talk about where we see this home value go. First of all, what are your goals?
Yeah,
How long do you plan on living here? Let's really just kind of flesh it out. And by the way, are you going to refinance in the next 2 years? Probably at some next 2 to 5 years. There's going to be a rate reduction, hopefully. Of course, you don't promise that, but is it likely? Yeah, it's likely. The Fed keeps telegraphing that at some point they're going to reduce rates, and maybe it will make sense for somebody to refi at that point. But you're right. I think this is, we as agents think about it way more than the public, and especially first time home buyers. Yeah, I get people who aren't first time buyers. That's a bit of a hurdle, and you're going to get people that are just going to stay put because they don't want to lose that rate.
sure.
But I think the first time home buyers, really are still up for grabs. And I don't think they're as connected to the rate as, anyone else.
Totally not. And I think, as time goes, news cycles disappear, right? Or that they fade away rather. And, people are just going to get used to the norm. It's like anything you deal with in life, it seems hard at first and then you just get used to it.
Now, right, I want to talk a little bit about what you offer to your agents. We talked about solving some of their problems, helping them automate some of their,
Yeah.
utilizing tech. Because, and I know not, of course, not every listener is in the Austin area. I'm not in the Austin area, and even though you may not be in Ryan's area, I want you to listen to what he offers, because you could find a version of this in your own local market. So even though, of course, Ryan wants as many Austin agents who fit that criteria to join him, I don't want you to tune out at this point, because even though this may not impact you because you're not in Texas, you, of course, can find a version of this locally. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what, and by the way, I think this is great because we're elevating what managing brokers well, I think the really good brokerages are always elevating the services they provide to agents,
Yeah.
and Ryan has to compete with all the big firms too. So,
Absolutely.
and is Ryan's brand Spyglass as well known as Coldwell Banker? Of course not. So he's competing with bigger known brands, and he is still growing his brokerage, and he's winning on a lot of those against those bigger brands. So tell us a little bit about, when somebody actually joins you, what you help do for them.
Sure, and I love talking about this stuff because my brand isn't as well known
Hmm.
nationally. I mean, we're actually fairly well known now in
Yeah.
Austin, but that we have to provide the best because we don't have caps here, right? We don't cap. And I'm glad we don't, because we wouldn't be able to offer as much. So there's the tech, which I won't even get into that, but we have 3 hours of training every single week. We have Teams Mastermind every 2 weeks. We have a photo and video shoot once a month where an agent can come in 2 or 3 times a year and get new lifestyle photos. They get bio videos. They can make reels on how to be a first-time buyer.
Sure.
And then, we have agent development groups where we coach the agents one-on-one or two-on-one and stuff, among those lines. So when I look at what every agent wants, they either want leads, okay, or they want top-notch support. So, the other thing we just hired is a full-time photographer and videographer. And what this does is an agent can click a button to have the photographer go out to their listing. He'll put the sign up, the lockbox up. He'll do a drone shot. He'll get photos, all for a price that is way less than if they were to hire outside company.
Right, because you have your own in-house guy. That's
Yeah.
great. I love that. That is really, really smart. And what's interesting is Ryan brought up a really good point, because his brand isn't, and again, I'm not in any way denigrating his
Yeah.
brand, but certainly the average consumer is going to know Remax versus Spyglass. But that being said, Ryan is like, oh yeah, so we have to actually offer more. We
Yeah.
actually have to do more and better to make up for that difference. And the good news is most brokerages don't offer half of what Ryan's offering.
Right.
So it's how do you effectively communicate that brand to other agents, just out of curiosity?
Well, you always have agents that, or agents that think that they need the big brand in order
Sure.
to get national exposure. Now, we're very fortunate in the sense that we just picked up a designation in your neck of the woods, which is leading RE.
Sure.
Are you familiar with them?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that helps us a lot with saying, okay, we have a global presence where we can be on their websites. The accumulation of real estate companies in leading RE does more volume than Compass or really just
Yeah, yeah.
anyone.
They're the biggest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's one good thing. It's like if you don't have something, if you're missing something, there are ways around it. You just got to figure out what that was or what that is. For us, like it took me a couple of years to get into leading leading real estate companies in the world, and solved a lot of problems for us.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is really a great place to wrap up. I really want everybody to do two things. One is to subscribe to Ryan's podcast, realtyhack.com. Ryan's a tech guy. He's served on boards. He is very much in the tech space. It is kind of his passion. In addition to that, he's also a systems and process guy. So because of the tech, that allows for really effective and efficient systems. So if you are an agent in that area of Austin and you are like, hey, I want better systems. I would like somebody to help me with some of my automation. I'm good at this and I need help with that. Ryan and his team would be a great opportunity to see if you could be of value to their firm. And of course, vice versa. Spyglassrealty.com is the place to go to learn all about what they offer. Ryan is super easy to get a hold of, and his team is really nice. We've dealt with them, of course, for the podcast, and they're just wonderful. Couldn't recommend them more highly. So for those of you that are in that market, please reach out to Spyglass to see if you'd be a good option. And also, again, realtyhack.com. That is the podcast. He's been doing it for years. You've heard him on the show today, and he's going to continue to put out episodes. So realtyhack.com, yes, is the website, and they have, well over 100 episodes. So check them out. And we will, I want to thank Ryan on behalf of our audience for spending an hour with us, also being very forgiving when I missed the initial appointment. So thank you, Ryan.
DJ, you are a gracious host. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And so on behalf of everyone, thank you, Ryan. And also on behalf of Ryan and myself, thank you to the audience. We really appreciate you sticking around to the end. A couple ways you can help us grow. In addition to following the Realty Hack podcast, also follow our podcast, Keeping It Real. We're on all the major social platforms. We post daily content on short form video to sort of give you a daily tip. So any social media system that you're using, we're on all of them, including TikTok. And also, please tell a friend about the show. Just tell one other agent who's struggling right now. And guess what? Almost all agents are struggling in some way. And we have different guests on the show to help address some of those struggles. Ryan, of course, talked all about today's training and coaching. And please tell other agents about this, because the agents need to be aware of what other brokerages offer. And that way you, as a listener, can hold your brokerage accountable and say, hey, I listened to this on a podcast. Can you help me with automations? Can you help me with systems? And if they say no, then maybe it's time to start looking elsewhere. So please tell a friend about the show. We really would appreciate it. Ryan, thank you again. And we will see everybody on the next episode.